So, Jeff Kelly, the owner of Safety Guard, they had set up in Fort St. James. They had done with that deployment. I was contacted and said, this resource is available. Would you like to have them come to the Babine complex, Southside, have a look at deploying over there? I was like, for sure, absolutely. I've known Jeff since last year. He gave me a call, told me he was coming with all of his equipment and everything. Got here, they set up the staging area there where they were at. And Jeff immediately went to work, having a look over on the other side, the logistics of setting up his equipment. So what they have is what I'll tell you is what he's told me in terms of what they have for equipment. So basically their capacity is to set up approximately 10 kilometers of line. That's what he says he can do. That's the 12-inch pipe, the soft pipe, and he has a bunch of big pumps. These pumps are 7,000 gallons a minute. That's what they deliver. And so the idea is where can we put this 10-kilometer hose lay in where we can, defend homes basically. And so the whole thing around water sources, and this is the Lakes District and all the rest of it, 7,000 gallons a minute. And if he plumbs 2 of those things in, that's 14,000 gallons a minute. Yeah, that's a lot of water. The only so when Jeff went over there and started doing the assessments, thank you, these are the ones I wanted for you. So he went over there and started doing assessments on the first night where he could potentially set this thing up. And he knows the water systems. These systems suck so much water that we have to do an environmental assessment on the water sources unless they're obviously massive, such as Francois or Utsa. Those are the 2 massive ones where it's a no-brainer, no environmental assessment required. He needs at least a 4-foot draft with his pumps to set those pumps up. So he went over there on the first night, started having a look around from a logistical standpoint where he could set up, what some sites may be. The next day, in conjunction with our operations folks, they started looking together at different areas where this system could be set up on the other side. They looked at several areas, but by Jeff's own admission, this system is best utilized where you have higher density populations. The rural house on a bigger piece of property, you guys know the landscape over there better than I do. So, and that's what we have over there is a lot of rural landscapes. So they looked at it all. Excuse me. Takaisi Lake was a potential, but the fire has really been through that area now, right? But I guarantee you, even on a lake like Takaisi, if we would have fired that system up, we're looking at a 1-foot drop, 2-foot drop. I don't have the exact numbers for you on how much that system would have drained out of there. But what we were really hoping with a hose lay that long, 10 to 12 kilometers, was that he would be able to set up on one of the bigger water sources, either Utsa or Francois. And that's his preference as well, to have a water source that is a no-brainer where we're not going to be worrying about, draining that water source dry and or significantly lowering those water levels, because that water is, people depend on it for other things as well, right? So the assessments were all done. We looked at where the housing is over there, where the highest density population housing is, looked at some of the rural stuff. We looked at it in potential support of some of our fire operations as well. After that was completed with our people and with Jeff, Jeff came back to me and he said, really, Pete, the only place where I can set the system up because as you come off the ferry, like either of those big water sources, elevation gain in that system is very challenging as well. So coming up off the ferry, there's a hill there. So he would have to put all of his pumps in series to get the water to the top. And these pumps, and you know it, but just for everybody else that's in the group, these are huge pumps, right? Massive pumps. They don't go in the back of a pickup. They're being hauled on semi-tractors. And so you need heavy equipment to unload the pumps and set them up and all the rest of it. And so it becomes logistically very challenging to put all of these pumps in line. So even Jeff was saying, to get this water to the top of the hill,
There's a water source there already. It's called the Three Nations Water Plant. Why don't you utilize that for the access to the water to the Southside people?
That's So I heard there was challenges with that, and
run out of lake water in Francis Lake. You guys never found the bottom of it yet?
we have been talking with Cheslada about it. I don't know about that water supply, but I know it has been drained, not by Jeff's systems, but just by the firefighting efforts that are occurring there right now. So you think about a pump that's drawing 7,000 gallons a minute. I'm sorry, the information I have is that water source would not last very, very long. It's been drained. Yeah. So even by Jeff's own assessments that he did over there, those were the water sources he wanted to use as well, either Utsa or Francois. And we know that, and so the only thing that he came back to us with in terms of a subdivision or an area that he could practically and pragmatically set his sprinklers up on was the subdivision right down by the ferry there, where there's higher density populations. He said, we could set it up here, Pete. It'd be about a 2-kilometer system with the sprinklers he has, and he could defend that area right down by the ferry. And so I know this isn't an accurate map, and I do apologize for that. But when we look at the ferry crossing here right now, the head of this fire, while this has grown into the back of the Cheslazli fire, and while this fire now is right on the banks of Binta, and has further growth here as well. And we can see the pattern of growth on fires here. This is the traditional pattern of growth of fires in this area, because as you guys know, the winds come from the west and they push fires towards the east. And you can see that in these growth patterns. That's how fires grow. So when we assessed this with Jeff, and when he told us this would be the area where he could defend properties the best with the equipment that he has, given its capacity, its limitations, all of the sort of technical specifications, et cetera, this is where he said he could set up. And so when we did analysis with our professional fire behavior modeling folks and fire behavior forecasters, and this is very defendable for us as well with our conventional equipment that we have here right now as well. So we came to the conclusion, in collaboration with Jeff, that it wasn't really required. Now we could have set it up there. We could have done that. But you know something? It would have been a public relations campaign. We could have done it. But that's what it would have been in terms of actual pragmatic, useful use of that system that he has. And that was the conclusion we came to in terms of our fire behavior specialists, myself, and Jeff together.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, if they knew they could use these trucks here and they weren't going to, why did they bring them?
Well, we didn't. We needed to do the assessment, and so.
Oh, the assessment was done after the trucks were here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so they were in Fort St. James.
Okay.
That's where they had started.
Yeah.
And then when the mission was done for them there, I got the phone call.
Because we're all seeing the trucks thinking, what? Why?
Yeah,
So
and it was
if
really.
we weren't here at all, we wouldn't have known anything.
No, and it was like, hey, somebody phoned me and said, Pete, they're done in Fort St. James. You want to give it a shot? And I was like, of course I want to give it a shot. This resource could really make a difference here. And so just on spec, I said, bring him in here, we'll set him up in a staging area, we'll get him set up, we'll get him food, but let's have it here, and do the assessments instead of them going all the way home. And then, so it just made sense logistically to give it a shot, right? And so that's what we did. We brought him here to do the assessments, have them all in place. If the assessments came back as positive, it's a go. They were ready to go. And even while they were here, they reconfigured all of their trucks so that if the assessment came back positive that there was a place to set these things up, they would have been able to deploy really, really quickly. So it took them just as long to reconfigure their trucks for transport back to Fort St. John as it did to reconfigure them for deployment. And that's why they were here for a day and a half after we had made the decision in collaboration with Jeff that we just didn't, the one site that he had just wasn't at risk, and that there wasn't the geography and the water sources as it pertains to this system and as it pertains to them being able to set up this system. So, yeah, that's how it kind of worked out.